Reading with your kids.
Hello, my dear, sweet, wonderful friends. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We're coming to you from the absolutely beautiful neighborhood of Reedville, hidden in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so happy you're a part of our beautiful Reading with Your Kids family. Please be sure to subscribe to the show so you don't miss an episode. We can be found on iTunes, on iHeartRadio, and on Spotify. We have an absolutely wonderful guest for you today. Karyn Parsons, you may have known her as Hillary from The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, is here to talk about her middle grade book, How High the Moon. Karyn is also going to be speaking to us about a project that is very near and dear to her heart called Sweet Blackberry. Hey, I want to take a minute to tell you about something that's near and dear to my heart. It's my brand new educational magic show called We Will Roar, Respect Others and Read. I love this show. It's really an exciting show that's totally interactive. Kids just love coming up on stage, being part of the show, and educators love this show too. Carolyn Fasano, who is a professional school counselor in the Prince William County School District down in Virginia, she wrote to me to say, "We love Jedley. Before the show, Jedley asked me what issues we were facing at our school. He tailored his message to address those issues, so it really hit home with our students. I will have Jedley back again." You know, I think that's the thing I love about my show. Every single show is different because every single audience is different. The show is so interactive. Their kids are up on stage with me throughout the show. And the needs of every school are different. And so I love to address those needs. And I love to bring this brand new show to your community. If you would like to learn more about this, you can go to my website, wewillroar.com. Joining us right now, I'm so excited. She's vacationing not too far away from where I am here in the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville. I'm excited because our guest is bringing so much real great information to us. We're going to be talking to her about her middle grade book, How High the Moon. Also speaking to her about a really important project that she's involved with. Please welcome to the show, Karyn Parsons. Karyn, how are you?
Hi, I'm really well, thank you.
I'm excited to have you here. I failed to mention that Karyn was also Hillary on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And just real quick, how was that experience being part of that really iconic show?
It was amazing. I mean, we didn't know that, how iconic this show was going to be. We had no idea about that. We were just having a really good time. And we were trying to do, good shows. We were really fortunate to have great writers, great director, and a whole team. The whole team behind the show was just really wonderful, wonderful people. I'm in touch with so many of them still to this day. And we had each other. We had a really great chemistry, and that was something you don't get all the time. You don't always look forward to going to work every day, and I did.
Yeah, well, that's it. It seems as I see reruns, and as my kids watched the show when they were younger, it seemed to have this, and of course you're watching TV, you don't know how much is make-believe, but there seemed to be this real love between all the characters on screen.
Yeah, that was real. I mean, we caught that the first week that we worked together. It was pretty incredible. We were all excited to be there, all happy to be there, and we all really were crazy about each other right away. And then we became kind of like family and bonded doing this, having this experience together. And as it would become a life-changing experience, the bond lasted. And so we're still very much like family. When we see each other, we just kind of pick up where we left off.
Well, that's fantastic. I'm real excited to find out more about How High the Moon. It's available for pre-order right now. Tell us all about the story, please.
It's actually available. It's available on the shelves now.
Oh, okay.
So not just pre-order. You can get it. It's my first novel. It's about a little girl growing up in the Jim Crow South of the 1940s, and she's growing up in South Carolina, and she's a little light-skinned girl growing up with her black family. Her grandparents, her cousins, and her mother, who's also black, lives up in Boston. And she gets the opportunity to spend some time with her. in the book, but she doesn't know who her dad is, and she doesn't know if possibly her dad is white, because she gets teased for being light-skinned and gets called zebra and all this stuff, and she doesn't know if maybe he really is white. And so it's kind of her trying to chip away and find out the truth about who her father is and what family means to her, or what it means in community. And it also explores the story a little bit of a real life person, George Stinney Jr., who is one of Ella, the girl's name's Ella, one of Ella's friends, who is based on a real person, George Stinney Jr., who at 14 years old was the youngest person ever executed for murder, which many years later he would be exonerated for. He was only 14 years old when he was convicted and then executed. And many years later they would throw out the whole case as a sham. But I wanted to kind of introduce people to George and to his story, because a lot of people don't know about it.
Well, that's horrifying to think that this happened. Well, I wasn't alive in the 40s, but it wasn't shortly after the 40s that I came into the world, and it's horrifying to think that this stuff was happening. It's such a short time ago. It's true.
It's true. You know, my mother, the whole idea, it came from the fact that my mother grew up in South Carolina in the 1940s, and she didn't know about George Stinney as a kid, but she would talk about her childhood, and she would talk about it in real favorable terms. Everything was always so positive and so happy. And the more as I grew up and knew more about that period of time, I was like, so tell me the whole truth about, like, when you grew up. Like, how happy were you? How could you be so happy? Wasn't it difficult? Wasn't it frightening? It was a dangerous time for Black people. And so I started asking her more and more questions, and I decided I wanted to kind of walk in her shoes and put myself as an 11-year-old girl and my mother as an 11-year-old girl together and kind of see what it would be like. And so in doing so, I quickly bumped into George Stinney Jr., who through my work with my organization, Sweet Blackberry, which we'll talk about later, through that work, I've known about George Stinney for a long time and wanted to share his story. And he happened to live not that far from my mother in South Carolina around the same time.
What was that experience like, putting yourself sort of in your mom's shoes and when she was an 11-year-old girl? That must have been pretty fascinating.
It was. It was really amazing. It was. I learned so much. You know, I think we don't realize how much we don't know about our parents. And I mean, she told me things and here and there, but when I really started to dig, and I had to recreate the world that she grew up in, because I was making it take place in a town like her town and with on a farm, and so I had to find out all of these particulars. And as I did, it only made me have to ask more questions, like, well, how did your grandfather manage to have a farm as a Black man at that time, and who did the work, and how did and I found out they had a huge farm and lots of fruit trees and lots of wild livestock and this kind of stuff that I had no idea she knew anything about. And meanwhile she grew up as this was her norm, but I grew up with her in Santa Monica, California, and very different. I've known her so different, as such a different person. So it was really interesting, and I think it's for all of us, if we start asking more questions. My husband's the one that made me ask my mom more and more questions, because he knew a lot about his history, a lot more than I did about his parents' history. And so I started asking more and more questions, and then became more and more curious the more I asked.
Well, that's one of the great benefits, I think, of reading with our kids, because it starts a conversation. When we start reading with our kids and start talking about those simple little board books that we read
Right.
while our kids chew on them, and we start talking to the kid. What do you like the colors? Point to your favorite color. That just starts a lifelong conversation that makes these kind of conversations about what was life like when you were a kid, Mom, easier and more natural to start.
Yes, that's absolutely true. And I think it's so important, because it helps add to their perspective in the world too, going out into the world, just like every book and every story does. And we have stories, and we might not think of our stories as that valuable or important, but everybody's story is so different. And in that alone, the fact that we are so different, that our stories are also different, makes us that much more special. That's what makes us special, really, is our differences and how unique each of us and our stories are. And so it's really important that we share our stories in books and in storytelling, and just, sharing, passing things on. I think a lot of us are very kind of modest about it and don't realize we have a lot that's interesting to other people and helps lend perspective to their view of the world, especially children.
Yeah, one of the things my daughter's in the music business, and she used to come out on tour with me a lot with my Educational Magic Show, and you're on the road, things happen. And anytime something weird or bad or difficult would happen, we just turn ourselves and go, this is going to make a great story at some point.
Exactly. That's so true. I mean, that is the best way to look at it. It's like, I forgot I think it was some Woody Allen movie, but they talk about, and this is just an idea that tragedy plus time, right, equals comedy. It's like you have distance from something. You're able to look at it and go, that's funny, or that's a good story. While you're in it, it might be, insane or awful or painful. It could be any of these things. But if you have some distance, it's like, that's a great story. And that story is gonna resonate for other people in some way. Maybe not that they can relate to it, but that they can relate to some feeling in it or some aspect of it. And that's what joins us as, humans.
Yeah. One of the things I love to ask authors is, what kind of conversations do you think families can have when they experience your book together, either co-reading it or maybe listening to an audio version in the car or even reading it out loud together?
Well, with my book, I'm really excited about, because it is historical fiction, which was really challenging to write. Yeah. However, it opens up so many things and allows for conversation with parents and their kids or educators and children about race. Definitely about race. I mean, we're going through there's so much that's very in our face in the media right now, where it hadn't been for a while. And I think I know with my own kids, they have a lot of questions. And I think when you have an understanding of our history and how we got to the place where we are today with race, I think it's incredibly illuminating and makes things make a lot more sense, and it helps a lot of people, children especially, understand the world that they live in, how we got here, and what we can do possibly. And in the book, we definitely deal with issues of race and problems from the past, and I think it can help kids. I think it opens up that conversation, that discussion about just about this country and its history with race. Yeah. It's thick. It's a lot.
It is, and I imagine some people listening would say, no, that's the last thing I want to talk to my kids about. But it's actually something we all need to start speaking, not only to our kids, we need to speak.
You might not like to, and you can try to, stick your head in the sand and pretend it's like, oh, I don't want to hear any more about that. And yeah, it's painful and it's frustrating, but the Band-Aid has kind of come off or the scab has been pulled back, or however you want to say it. And I think we're all dealing with it right now. And children, it's in kids' faces. They are having to deal with it. And I think it's much better that parents and educators are the ones, especially parents, that are talking to their kids about this, and their kids are comfortable asking them questions as opposed to being confronted with situations, aggression, frustration, prejudice, all these things happening around them, and they are kind of clueless about it. They should have a safe place to go to talk about it. And their parents, and I think in literature, all of these areas help them to work things out and understand things better.
Absolutely. Well, you are involved in something that I think is actually going to help move that conversation about race forward. Sweet Blackberry, tell us all about that. I've just spent some time this morning checking out the site, and I'm really excited about this project.
Thank you. I'm very excited about it too. Sweet Blackberry is a nonprofit organization that I started about over 10 years ago to bring little-known stories of African American achievement to kids. And these are American stories. They're stories for everybody, but they're stories that we don't hear about so much. In our history books, I think we hear about a handful of Black people. We're hearing a little bit more here and there. But, we hear about some really wonderful stories, but there are so many more stories about people that actually helped, they are the fabric of this country. They helped build this country, and we don't understand that. We don't see that. We don't know who these people are, and I think it's really important that their stories not be lost. Mm-hmm. I think it's very important that that children know who these people are so they can also be inspired by them, and they're empowering stories. My mother was a librarian, and that which was the whole start of all of this, is she would tell me stories that she came across at her library in the Black Resource Center, that she headed at one point at her library. And she told me the story of Henry Box Brown, who was an enslaved man who literally mailed himself to freedom in a box. He had a box built, got inside, had someone nail it shut, put postage on it, and sent him on a 27-hour journey from Virginia all the way to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And when they opened the box and he had survived, he was across state lines and he was free. Mm-hmm. And I found that to be the most incredible story I'd ever heard. And I couldn't believe that I had never heard it before, and that no one I knew had heard it. And I thought, well, this just has to be shared. And that was the impetus for all of the Sweet Blackberry stories.
Well, I have to tell you, I'm a little embarrassed. As a magician, when I saw the image of the journey of Henry Box Brown, it just caught my eye because it looked just like an illusion my kids did called Metamorphosis, where my son was tied up in a box and my daughter jumped on top and they switched places magically. And that's what my son looked like coming out of the box. But that story is so much, the story of Henry Box Brown is so much more magical because it just shows the power of freedom and of the desire, the power the desire that we all have to be free. How powerful that is.
That determination, mm-hmm. right? I mean, that we own that, and I think that that's something so important in all of these stories to give children, is to show them what they're capable of. Mm-hmm. By showing them the triumphs of these people and that overcame incredible obstacles and went on to do great things. It shows all of us what we have in us, what we're capable of. I think that's really important to give to children.
We've talked with a lot of authors on the show about the importance of representation and the power of seeing yourself or somebody who looks like you on the pages of books. Really, very early on here on the show, we had a guest. She's a regular guest, Jennifer Swanson. She was kind enough to send a copy of her book, Astronaut Aquanaut, from my wife's classroom and also for my wife's best friend's school. And the kids at my wife's best friend's school, she's the principal of a school serving kids from Central America. And they were kind of, they looked at, okay, it's in science, but then they came to a page where there is a Latino astronaut on the page, a picture of and the kids, their minds exploded. And somebody's like, oh, we need to read this book. We need to pay attention.
Yeah. I'm here. That's me.
Yeah. Talk a little bit more about that, because I think it's important for everybody to just hear it over and over again, just how important this is.
Well, I think it's something we're starting to understand more and more. Everyone's starting to understand it, but there's for so long it's just this default to white, and that's all we see, and that's what people just get used to. But what it does, you can imagine what that does to a child of color when you don't see yourself in things. And the messaging is so strong. Not only do you not see yourself, you're told in this indirect way that you're not valuable, important, you don't, you haven't done anything, you can't do anything. It's the messaging is there that you are lesser than, that you're not the main thing. You're not important in that way. It's like, we just lost Toni Morrison. Mm-hmm. And I'm seeing, all of these interviews are coming up and quotes of hers. And it's really interesting as she went head first she was constantly asked, this is a Pulitzer Prize, Nobel Prize award-winning author. And she was always asked about, are you going to write something, that's not with black people so much? Or are you going to write something that, are you going to have some stuff that features more white people, more white characters? And it's such an interesting thing. Like, we think of that's thought of as a normal question to ask. And it's such an abnormal question to ask. Mm-hmm. And it's so racially slighted, mm-hmm. She's a black woman. She's right. It's just a white person. Right? People write what they know. People write what they understand or what's close to them. But to think that somehow what she was writing needed to be in question, is kind of the thing that we're up against all the time, without enough representation. And the more that happens, the more we see all people represented, I think that people will understand how a question like that is kind of ridiculous to ask of a black author. I'm glad to see that we are seeing more books and more people are being more mindful of inclusiveness and showing all of us. And I hope, like I said with Sweet Blackberry, that we can show more of that and people can get used to, these are all of our stories. These belong to all of us. These are heroes for all of us. They're not just heroes for black people. They're heroes. These are American stories and human stories, more importantly.
Yeah, and one of the things that I truly believe in, as important as it is for someone to be able to see themselves in the pages of books or in media, it's also important for all kids to see every shade of the rainbow in books and in media, because that's the way that's the way we start to build friendships and start to accept other people as fully human beings who are capable of being friends and
not abstract them.
Exactly.
I mean, that's our big problem that we've got going on right now, and the divisiveness in the country is so many people don't know people that aren't like them. Mm-hmm. They're used to, everybody's living in their own bubbles, and they just know the people that they're around who think the way that they do. And if you get to know other people and talk to other people and they get to know you, then we're less likely to abstract people and put all sorts of labels on people from a distance without getting to know who they are, or how different all of them are. There's this thing of them as this one thing too. We're all different.
Mm-hmm. I'll be honest with you. I never understood just hanging out with people who are like you. It's so boring. Open up your world. Get to know other folks. There's one thing, and I just wanted to mention, we talked a little bit about it before the interview started, that you, on your sizzle reel at Sweet Blackberry, it's fascinating, and it tells the story of Sweet Blackberry so well, but it also tells the story of why it's needed. And there was a clip from an interview, I think it was Anderson Cooper speaking to a little girl, and the little girl looked at her hand and she said, "I don't like the color of my skin."
Yeah.
And it was so heartbreaking.
It was terrible. And she's a little girl. She's such a little girl. You're like, how did she get these messages already? And she says, I don't like it because it's brown, and I don't know, brown is yucky. I don't know why. I mean, she doesn't know why she's even feeling the way she's feeling. I mean, this is the Dolly experiment that started in, I think, the late 30s. And they would give children, black children, two dolls to choose from, a black doll and a white doll. And they would say which one is the pretty doll, which one is the ugly doll, which one is the good doll, which one is the bad doll. And down the line, the black kids said that the black doll was the ugly doll, the black doll was the bad doll, the white doll was the good doll, the pretty doll. And these are little kids that have already received these messages that they are ugly and that they are bad. And they don't know why. And it's absolutely devastating and heartbreaking, and it's all the evidence we need to see that, we can say things have changed, but that Anderson Cooper thing, I mean, it was Anderson Cooper on CNN, so it was not that long ago. I don't know the exact year that happened, but it wasn't in the 30s or 40s. Right. It was recent. And so it tells us that the damage is still being done on a regular basis to children. and we need to be aware of this and do what we can to undo it. It's no good.
Well, what can we do to help push Sweet Blackberry forward?
Oh, well, you can support us. We're a nonprofit. So we're a nonprofit organization. Spread the word. Let people know about Sweet Blackberry. We're at sweetblackberry.org. And you can, donate to the organization. You can, like I said, so monetary donations, of course, are welcome. We can use that. But also, you can let people know about it and draw people, tell your friends about it so they can go to the website and they can purchase the Sweet Blackberry DVDs. We have some great films. We've done 4 films so far. They've been they're like picture books come to life. Mm-hmm. They're short animated films. We've got Queen Latifah narrating one. We've got Chris Rock, Lawrence Fishburne, Alfre Woodard. Incredible talent has come on board to make these things happen. I'm really proud of them. So I would just say tell your friends about them and visit sweetblackberry.org and see how you can become involved too, because we can use volunteers, we can use help all the time.
Well, the DVDs are really, really affordable. I mean, my wife is a teacher, so I know like educational content, educational DVDs, and they're really expensive, like crazy expensive.
Yeah.
But this isn't really. It's what you'd pay for a picture book.
Yeah, exactly. Also, I'd love to let people know that I'm available to come out to schools. One of my favorite things to do is to go to schools and screen the films for the kids and talk to them about it, ask them questions and take their questions. I learn a lot. Hopefully they learn a lot, but I learn a lot as well because, as you know, kids come up with questions all the time that you're like, whoa, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
you know, but it's, so I love to go visit. So if there are teachers out there, educators who are interested in that too, you can visit me at Sweet Blackberry and inquire about that because I would love that as well.
That's awesome. So the website is sweetblackberry.org.
That's correct.
Yes, and you can go there and you can order the DVDs and learn more. You can also check out the school visits page and find out how you can have Karyn come and visit your school. I know people get excited when I come with my magic show to a school, but imagine if you could get Hillary from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air to come to your school and share these wonderful videos with your kids. That would be a true treat.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's really for me.
Well, we've had such a great time talking about sweetblackberry.org and also talking about How High the Moon and spending some time with our guest, Karyn Parsons. Karyn, thank you so much for being part of our show today.
Thank you. It was really nice being here and talking to you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Michelle Travis. Can't wait for you to meet Michelle. Hey, if you are the author of a great children's book, we would love to help you celebrate that book right here on the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Being a guest, it's fun, it's easy, and it gives you the chance to tell thousands and thousands of people about your wonderful children's book. All you need to do is to go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com, click on the contact button, let us know about your great book. We will let you know the next easy steps. We want to thank the people who made today's show so very, very wonderful. Of course, we want to thank our guest, Karyn Parsons. Please check out her middle grade novel, How High the Moon, and also be sure to check out Sweet Blackberry. Really, really important program. I want to thank my producer, Fatima Khan. Please be sure to check out her blog at readingwithyourkids.com. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all of the support she gives me. And, of course, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for being part of our beautiful Reading with Your Kids family. Thank you so much for connecting with us on Facebook at facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, on Twitter at Jedley Magic, and on Instagram, Reading with Your Kids. And, of course, we want to thank you most of all for making the world a better place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.